For Monday, October 28th, will please come back to order, and we are going to continue with the Domestic Relations Division, the Honorable Judge Leslie Ann Celebrezzi. Welcome to the committee.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, members of the County Council. This is my first time here, and unlike Judge...
We'll be nice.
Thank you. Unlike Judge Sweeney and Judge Russo, I can't tell you if I'm going to be the AJ for the next 2 years because we haven't voted yet. But however, on behalf of the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court Domestic Relations Division, I accept the proposed budget for fiscal years 2020 through 2021 as conveyed in the executive's recommended biannual budget. That being said, I do support the needs of juvenile court. I understand their job, and they need to work effectively and efficiently to service the needs of our juvenile population. You did ask a few questions, Councilman Miller. I can answer those, hopefully. We have 88 employees. 5 of those include our judges. We could not face a reduction in staff, as we could not provide the services that we currently provide to our citizens. We have a dedicated domestic violence department, which is a mentor court. We are participating in a 4-court national study. We have a help center that serviced over 20,000 people. We have 66% of the litigants we see are pro se. We have the Family's First docket, which is the first docket in a domestic relations court that provides mental health and substance abuse counseling. It's partnered with the Adams Board that was started by Judge Jones. Your other question was, we can't add any employees because we have no physical space. While it would be great to, we cannot. We have nowhere to put them. And we do have a few new initiatives. One of those would be intelligent filing solutions that will assist with our pro se population. That would be, you complete your forms online, so when you come into the court, you are more prepared for the hearing officer, and your forms will be completed correctly. That being said, that's all I have. I told Judge Russo I'd be under a minute. I'm sure everyone's tired and doesn't want to hear anything more, so unless anyone has any questions, I'd like to say thank you.
Okay, so Judge, the intelligent filing solution, is that item in the budget as proposed, or would that be additional?
That is currently in our budget, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, questions by my colleagues? You're going to get off easy.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So maybe I will decide to be AJ again so I can come back here.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a pleasant day.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next, we have the Probate Division, the Honorable Anthony J. Russo presenting.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Council President Brady, Chairman Miller, members of Council. I'm Anthony Russo, the presiding and administrative judge of the probate court for the past 11 years, since 2009. We're not requesting any additional appropriation from the general fund over the biennium. We're accepting the budget that's been recommended by the Office of Budget and Management and the county executive. I did prepare some remarks that are more thorough than what I'm going to say here that we've distributed to you. I would appreciate it if you had a chance at some point later today if you could read that over. Just quickly, I'm going to mention 5 things that the court's involved with at the present time that might be of interest to you. Number 1, the probate court continues to expand our electronic filing system. We expect to add all guardianship cases and all land sale cases in 2020. We have more than 5,000 individuals that are registered as e-file users, and of which 1,800 are attorneys. Number 2, we continue our unique collaboration with municipal courts and clerk's offices in Garfield Heights, Berea, Rocky River, and Shaker Heights to issue marriage licenses. So you can go online, fill out the paperwork, and then rather than coming downtown to the court to get your marriage license, you can go to one of those suburban locations. That's at no cost to the general fund. Number 3, the court and our partner, the Adams Board, collaborate with the Assisted Outpatient Treatment Program in an effort to reduce the incidence and duration of inpatient psychiatric hospitalizations, homelessness, and interactions with the criminal justice system This is with persons that have severe mental illness. The probate court conducts biweekly meetings with grant participants diagnosed with severe mental illness, and we try to get them on their treatment programs to encourage participants' commitment to their treatment goals. Basically, what this does is most of these individuals are already in an inpatient program, and it permits, I believe, the doctors to release them earlier because they're being released under supervision of this program as opposed to just being released. So whereas it does not cut down on the incidence of inpatient commitments, I believe it does cut down on how long the inpatient commitments last. That doctors have this available to be able to release an inpatient person to this program. I don't have the statistics on that yet because it's subject to a grant. I believe they're compiling the statistics. We're in, I believe, completing the second year of a 3-year grant. But we think it's a vital program and that it's a very good service for people that have mental illness. Number 4, we opened a court resource center in February of 2019 to assist self-represented parties dealing with simple estates, guardianships, and name changes, and also helping them fill out the forms. The resource center has currently 16 attorneys offering their services one day each month. And in the past 7 months, we've served over 500 individuals that did not need an attorney that were able to meet with one of these attorneys to help them either answer their questions or fill out the forms so they could do it themselves. And lastly, the probate court's proud to announce the creation of our newest program, which is called Guardian Partners. The court currently has 7,000 wards under guardianship in Cuyahoga County. We want to ensure that these most vulnerable residents in our community who usually have physical or mental disabilities receive proper care. So we're recruiting graduate level students and social workers to make wellness checks on all of these adult wards. After the visit, a report will be filed with the court to ensure that the needs of the ward are being met. The court will implement this program through the use of our own restricted funds, and we will not request an additional appropriation from the county. We're just getting rolling with that, and we expect that to start going in January, right after the first of the year. We respectfully request that you approve our budget for the next biennium based on the Office of Budget and Management and the county executive recommendation. And lastly, I just want to support Judge Kristen Sweeney and as administrative judge of the juvenile court in her efforts to secure adequate funding for the detention center. Lastly, on a personal note, I want to commend the OBM director, Maggie Keenan, and also our budget analyst, Wendy Fine, for the outstanding service that they provide to our court and the people who work in our court. Thank you very much. Did you have any questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions by my colleagues? Okay, we have one.
I don't have a question. Just if you would, Judge, send us the creation of the Guardian Partners, I would love to
Sure.
know a little bit about that. Thank you.
Well, we're just in the process of drawing up a brochure and the paperwork for that, so we'll get it over to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And next we have the Court of Appeals of Ohio, the 8th Appellate District, Honorable Eileen T. Gallagher. The court is primarily state-funded but partially county-funded. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you and good afternoon, Council President Brady, who has stepped out, Chairman Miller, and members of council. I do appreciate the opportunity to be before you today. I am here on behalf of our Court of Appeals Administrative Judge, Mary Eileen Kilbane. She was unable to make it today. I, however, will be involved in the budget process on behalf of the court for the coming 2020 and 2021 years. I would like to acknowledge and thank Maggie Keenan, OBM Director, and Wendy Fenn, Budget and Planning Administrator. They were responsive to our needs and a pleasure to work with. The Court of Appeals accepts the proposed 2020-2021 biennial budget being recommended by the county executive. As we accept the proposed budget, I will hold on presenting new initiatives that have been approved unless you direct me otherwise. I would like to state on the record that I too stand in agreement with the request by Judge Russo to increase appointed counsel reimbursement, as well as the comments made by the common pleas courts, juvenile court, domestic relations, and probate court. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions by my colleagues? Yes.
If you could just touch on the initiatives.
Certainly. There were no staffing requests because our personnel budget is funded through the state. The new initiatives proposed were: 1, computer subscription software licensing costs. That's annually. It's through Office 365. It's a government plan. 2, publications for a limited amount of legal treatises. And then 3, personnel development, such as CLEs, to keep our staff trained and updated.
And these items are included in the budget, is that correct?
Yes, they
That
are.
is correct. Okay. And would you please provide the clerk a copy of your opening statement so we can have it for the record?
Yes, I can.
And the clerk will distribute it to the council. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Next, we have the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney, the Honorable Michael C. O'Malley.
Good afternoon, County Council.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing? As you can see, we've presented our budget analysis. I am fully supportive of the budget that is being proposed. And again, I'd like to say it's been a very challenging several years for the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, whether it's my CFS unit, my juvenile unit, my criminal unit, DTAC. We are running very hard, and I think we're doing our best for the taxpayers of this county. Just some highlights, as you know, we came before you. We added some additional civil staff during the middle of our litigation crisis. I think we're doing well there. You've probably met several of the attorneys we put on in the last year. They're doing a good job. I also want to touch briefly upon our CFS unit. The current number, and Michelle Myers is here if you have any questions regarding CFS, but we are currently at 2,919 children in permanent custody.
29,
Well,
29,
temporary and
19.
permanent, 2919 in temporary and permanent custody. So that number, I think, is up 1,000, and I think since I took over, so 3 years ago, that number, I think, as we all know, is a reflection on the opioid crisis that has so devastated our community. Additionally, as the council is well aware, and I appreciate your work working with the county executive in regards to our opioid funds, but I think our civil staff, as well as our private counsel, did a superb job on behalf of the citizens of Cuyahoga County in bringing some money back to reimburse us for the damages and expense that tidal wave of destruction has caused upon our community. Okay. Questions?
Questions by my colleagues, Councilman Tron.
We're in the process of considering a fund to segregate those opioid dollars and from either the settlement or from any litigation. Any comments or thoughts as far as how it should be put together?
Well, I think if the state taught us anything as a result of the tobacco settlement, which was hijacked for other additional purposes, I think transparency in the expenditures of those funds is certainly something that we should model, that we should be very open with our residents. Certainly on a personal level, I think we really have got to get that money into ground level treatment facilities. is we all know too well that, you know, those who are suffering from addiction need a facility that they can get into, that they can reside in, and that they can receive the guidance, education, and assistance they need. And certainly it's my hope that this council, when you're looking at ways to spend that, considers those treatment facilities that are so needed in our community.
Okay.
Additionally, I'd like to say, while we're on that thought, that I certainly applaud the Common Pleas Court and this council. You know, I have been fighting for an expanded eligibility drug court, and I'm happy to see that we're on our way now for the citizens of this county in having one.
Thank you.
Councilman Gallagher.
Earlier, I asked about witness victim, and it seems we have two. Is there a necessity for that?
I don't know that there's a necessity for that. That's somehow before my time, that's how it became. But I can tell you, certainly my office deals with the victims of crime every day. Certainly they're in our offices. They work with my prosecutors. They work with my advocacy staff. And I don't know the reason all these years ago that was divided by two, but I don't know how it came about.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, you're getting off easy as well?
I guess it pays to be at the end.
Okay, and for our final presenter of the day, we have our public defender, Mark Stanton.
See if it pays. Council President Brady, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Miller, distinguished members of County Council, if I could, I'd ask for 3 minutes for an opening statement and approximately 3 minutes to go through the budget requests themselves. Is that permissible?
That would be fine, and I would request if you would please send a copy of your remarks to the clerk, as we've asked everyone else to do, so that we can have it on the record.
I certainly will. I would be remiss if I did not state to County Council that 2 years ago I walked in here with my tongue in my throat. I had knee pads on so that you didn't hear my knees knocking because I had no discernible way to present to you the vast array of requests that I had. And my angst was somewhat relieved. In fact, it was more than somewhat relieved. It was relieved tremendously because two people stood up here in front of me, before me. That was John Russo, the administrative judge, Mike O'Malley, the county prosecutor. Unsolicited, and I'm sure that was not favorable for their colleagues. They stood up here and advocated for the money that I was requesting on behalf of the Public Defender's Office. It was honorable. They showed this tremendous backbone for doing it, and I would be remiss not to recognize that. And certainly I must reciprocate at this time, and I'm sure there's people back at our office right now throwing darts at my picture because I'm advocating for the county prosecutor, Mr. O'Malley, and for the administrative judge, John Russo. Both of them are tremendous public servants who, and Mr. O'Malley and I we're adversaries every day, but we have a mutual respect for one another. We understand the demands of our jobs and the fact that we must approach it with great diligence. So I would ask that you would please do that. I would also ask folks, I greatly appreciate and exult in the opportunity afforded our agency to appear before this august body and present a budget that encompasses our brightest aspirations and realistic obligations. As public defenders, we strive continuously to fulfill our noble mission statement, and we demand continuously that we must and will provide consummate protection and representation for the indigent of this community. This mission statement has always remained vibrant in our office. It's received a spirited adherence from our uncommonly dedicated attorneys and staff, but we were in a frightening state of affairs in 2017. It was grievously endangered by the 10 years of no requests. Fortunately, we received the godsend of an objective analysis from this council after we had already been denied, and the unwavering support and guidance, and I underline guidance, from Maggie Keenan and Wendy Fine to navigate us in waters that were not continuously upstream. 2 years ago, I requested just a sturdy boat, not a big boat, not a ship. I asked for a boat and a paddle. You provided that sturdy boat. You provided that reliable paddle, but not just one paddle. We were provided with 141 sturdy paddles, and the forward movement of each and every one of our 141 employees is now consistently aggressive and productive. The enormity and virtuous nature of your gracious gesture has been transformative for our office. We're a completely different office than we were 2 years ago. We're no longer subjected to closed doors, unanswered emails, and unreturned phone calls. We are no longer minimized, dismissed, or summarily ignored by certain courts or agencies. Our voices are heard on a daily basis, and occasionally, and if not miraculously, our words are often embraced. Most significantly, we can assure our clients, many of whom are just forgotten or misplaced souls, that our efforts on their behalf are now fortified with sufficient resources to ensure a vigorous defense on their behalf. Once again, I must convey our indelible gratitude to all of you for this agency-changing transition in the Public Defender Office. I certainly will comply with the directive not to highlight accomplishments, but I can assure all of you that our performance in all 3 county divisions, juvenile, felony, and appellate courts, have been uniformly professional and beneficial to our clients and the community at large. I'll reduce our hundreds of accomplishments to the more workable number of 2. And that's that we've sealed or expunged more than 1,000 felony records just since October 2017, and over 3,000 have been sealed since the program was initiated in our office. Obviously, sealing of records assures new employment, it assures better employment, it assures promotions. We've opened nearly 3,600 abuse, neglect, and dependency cases in juvenile court involving more than 1,700 distinct parents, all in the past 12 months. We fight relentlessly for reunification of the family when it is appropriate and necessary. That family unit is restructured, it's resurrected, it's strengthened, and because of that, the community as a whole is enriched and stabilized. I have talked many times to all of you about the reimbursement rate here. I'm sure ad nauseum to some of your perception. It's been 25 to 45% over the last 15 years. It was 42% in 2019. It is now 70% in 2020, and I can assure you I was just at the Public Defender Summit down in Columbus on Friday. The first checks have already gone out. The 70% rate of reimbursement is already activated because it was 90 days after the budget was approved. The first checks have already gone to county agencies all over the state. So that our 13.8 million, our 15.665 million budget, which is county and Cleveland Municipal Court. Cleveland Municipal Court's 100% reimbursed, and there's a 3% administrative fee that goes back to the general fund, both in 2019 and 2020. That $13.5 million budget is actually $4 million in 2021, which is at page 113 of the budget, of the recommended budget. The $13,778,000. The actual cost of the county is $1,377,000. And I'm just going to say, we dedicated 2 weeks. We put a clerk on this. He is a dogged individual. He went through 133 agencies in this county because I wanted to know who else provides 70% and 90% reimbursement to the county. It's too unwieldy to put on a PowerPoint. I had this huge poster board that I was going to bring in here, but a certain individual who shall remain, Gene Smotzer, said, "No dice, pal. You're not bringing it in." So I can either provide it to you, but there's only one other agency throughout Cuyahoga County that provides that type of reimbursement. And I'm telling you that the generosity that you've shown us, those budgets are very, very minimal for what we're requesting here. Anything that we're requesting is already contained in the recommended budget of the executive. We're asking for an attorney for juvenile court, 1 paralegal for juvenile court. We only have 1 paralegal in our entire office for 91 attorneys. He just can't do it. His tasks are Herculean. He just can't do it. We need 2 docket clerks because we must go paperless. We don't have any room left in county archives. We must get that done. That is a daunting task. It's going to take a number of years. I've also asked for an administrative assistant for me. My note here is, because we have no room to put that person in there. I can also assure you that Ms. Liu is not the administrative assistant, if in fact you do approve this. But quite honestly, I'm not sufficiently competent to be in 3 places simultaneously that this position requires. If you're not of a mind to grant that. I hope that you do, but if you don't, we'll get by. The people in our office are just uncommonly dedicated to their tasks. But obviously, the space issue was the most paramount issue for us, and I want to thank this council again for allowing the opportunity to come in here and speak to that issue last Monday. There is one other matter, Chairman Miller, if I could address, relative to the jail itself.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much. It's a budget matter that I think affects the Public Defender Office directly, but it also affects the general fund enormously. We have a steering committee on one of the votes of the 12 individuals on the steering committee on the future of the Justice Center. You're going to tear it down and rebuild it. You're going to tear it down, as is Councilman Gallagher. Are you going to tear it down and build it someplace else, or are you going to refurbish it? I don't have the answer to that. That's a discussion for another time, but I think you and I can probably agree that you're not going to refurbish that building that was dysfunctional at the time that it was built, and you're not going to tear it down and put it back up in that place. I'm not Howard Hanna, but I know that that's a prime piece of real estate bounded by Lakeside, St. Clair, West 3rd, in Ontario. So I don't think that's going to happen. But the cost of the replacing jail, this is something that's going to affect us forever, for decades into the future. It's not the cost of building the jail, it's the cost of maintaining space in that jail and the enormity of the amount of people that you're going to have and the services in there. So this issue has been involved with us. We're going to vote on this. We did have a preliminary vote on it. And I would implore all of you to read the paper that was issued by Chairman Miller relative to his study on the need for the number of spaces in the jail. He and I are both in agreement on this. The initial vote was it's going to be 1,600 minimum and 2,400 maximum. I want 1,250. He wants 1,550. The point of the matter is you cannot have a 2,400 person jail without costing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. I will just give you one example. That jail was built in 1976 with the County Justice Center. 1975, 776 beds. You had 1.6 million people in this county. You had 650,000 people in the city of Cleveland. The population continued to decline, unfortunately, for the next 45 years. And yet we have additions and renovations and another jail in there. We now have 2,229 beds. What, because we suddenly became more violent? Because there's more homicides? It's patently untrue. It's absurdly untrue. It's gone the other way, completely the other way. You now have 383,000 people in the city of Cleveland and 1.28 million people in the county. So the county went down by 350,000, the city went down by 300,000, and our jail was expanded 300%. It makes no sense whatsoever. But I tell you one thing. If you build that jail and you put those number of people in there, you're going to have people sitting in that jail. They're going to reach capacity again. So I commend John Russo for having the backbone, Judge John Russo. Mike O'Malley has also certainly gotten on board with bail reform. I ask you both, all of you please, to support bail reform. The backbone, this is far too long in the making, but I will tell you this, and I know you don't want to see these things. These are all the arraignment sheets since August 14th, 2019 to Friday, October 25th. These are the arraignment sheets just for the Public Defender's Office. We received 35% of the cases. There's 104 cases in here. And it's my subjective analysis, but I tried to be as conservative as possible. There's 104 bonds, personal bonds, that were granted to people that in the last 45 years never would have received a personal bond. And how can I say that? I can say it because I respect a lot of people in this court, in this room right here, okay? But nobody's been walking in that arraignment room for 41 years or 42 years since 1978, except the elderly man talking to you now. And I know darn well who receives personal bonds and who doesn't. This isn't on 4th and 5th degree felonies only. There's felonious assaults in here. There's robberies in here. There's gross sexual impositions. Did we suddenly have a bunch of epiphanies by the common pleas judges? Did they suddenly have a transformative event in their life that said, I'm going to embrace bail reform over 10 weeks? Nonsense. You know what happened. 9 people died. They died. Let's admit it. Do you think this would be going on right now and that we'd have bail reform being talked about if those 9 people hadn't died? You know darn well that wouldn't have happened. So I say to you, I just want to give you one quote. We went to a judicial conference. It's called the 8th District Judicial Conference. We've been having it for 35 years. 200 attorneys and judges get together every 18 months to talk about justice issues. And it's more often than not, it's a very positive experience. But one judge, one common pleas judge, who can I assure you has never been in the county jail, has never represented an individual who might be indigent or might have had to get out of jail, actually stood up in front of 200 people and stated, out of a bad situation, sometimes we move forward in a positive manner and good things get done. A bad situation? That's the heartfelt comprehension of this catastrophic series of events? Explain that to the families and the wives and the children of those 9 people that died, that it was just too bad what happens, but maybe it'll be better for the county. I'm sure that's highly comforting to those people. Tell that to the thousands of unfortunate souls who have had to sit in that decrepit and dysfunctional jail for 45 years because they didn't have the money to get out. And they were subject to unconstitutionally imposed bonds. Tell it to them. Tell it to them that they now have a 32% greater recidivism risk merely because they sat in there for 3, 10, or 30 days. I don't make these up. They're in the Bail Task Force report that was commissioned by the Court of Common Pleas. Tell them that because they sat in there those days, they're 3 times more likely to get a jail sentence, 4 times more likely to get a prison sentence. And it's going to be 3 times longer than the same person with the same background, the same alleged crime, but he or she got bond and you didn't. But no worries. The publicity has already started to recede. Okay? Matters are quieting down. But you know what? They're not quieting down for public defenders and defense attorneys who still can't get in the jail to interview their clients. We've got 3 rooms for 400 defense attorneys in this community to go in and have private consultation. And Mr. Mason was here earlier, and Brandy Carney cornered me outside. She says, Mark, we're doing the best we can to, and I appreciate their efforts. But again, it never would have been done except 9 people died. And we're still having attorneys standing over there for an hour and a half in the afternoon not being able to get in. You can't get in on weekends. You can't get in at night. Nothing like this exists in any other county. So we'll build a jail with a capacity for 2,400 inmates. That's the vote. I guarantee it'll be stocked with human beings without any difficulty or sense of regret. But if that size of a jail is built, folks, you're going to have a financial albatross that'll suffocate this county and exhaust hundreds and hundreds of $millions over the next decades. You might as well strap that county budget on a permanent gurney and wheel it into the ICU because you're going to have a heck of a hard time providing good benefits to the majority of the people in this county if we're stuck with a jail like that. I am not an expert, but I know what the heck I've experienced over the last 4 decades. One final note, I see that centralized booking was just trotted out again for like the 19th time in the last decade. Coincidentally, I guess, with these budget hearings. And it's worked elsewhere. I do not demean it in the least, but it's a specious, meaningless concept unless it is combined with meaningful advent of authentic bail reform. I implore you to pursue that bail reform, the money that's involved, and support the administrative judge, John Russo, and Brendan Sheehan in these particular endeavors. It can be a transformative event for this entire county if we can embrace it and make it work. And thank you for the time. Any questions?
Thank you very much. My colleagues, Councilman Gallagher, followed by Simon and Stevens.
Mr. Stanton, thank you. As you well know, we have to right-size everything in Cuyahoga County from top to bottom, and especially in the justice system, and you know what I'm talking about. I, along with you, and I believe the prosecutor, are on the committee on the Just Center Jail, and I think we're all of like mind to get moving on the jail ASAP, regardless of what size. I'm not going to fight over that. I just want to get this thing going. We have an eagle eye over the federal court watching us, and if we don't move in a timely manner, things they're going to be worse than what you just said. Worse. So I think what we have right now is a grand opportunity, not just to do the bail reform, but the central booking, but to do it right. And the interesting thing is I keep harping on central booking. And the only reason I do is because Sheriff Reed, Sheriff Bova, even Sheriff Pinckney were pushing that. And I fall to the experts, and I fall to your expertise. The unfortunate thing is this council's the last ones to find out. So my promise to you in this budget hearing is that within the next year, at least this council is going to work with you and the prosecutor and the administration if they wish for us to work with them to get this thing done, especially with the courts. This is not unnecessarily difficult to do, as you well know. And it is interesting to me that all of a sudden, as you say, things are moving along in the jail. And the reason is people died. And the reality, the cold reality that we're going to have to deal with up here is with those families. And the cold reality is going to be cold cash. And it's going to come out of this budget to pay for those deaths. And those are going to be the multiple tens of millions of dollars that could have easily gone somewhere else, and they're not going to. So if anything frosts me more than anything is that. But the reality is we're going to do it. We're going to move forward. You have my word on that, that if next year at this time we haven't made any movement, then there would be no reason for me or any of us to be sitting up here because we haven't done our job. And I think you have 11 individuals up here that you have our ear and you have our word that we're going to get this thing done.
Chairman Miller, to Councilman Gallagher, I appreciate all your comments, sir. The only thing I would add, and I must reemphasize this, I want to make it clear, I'm not opposed to centralized booking, but it doesn't mean anything unless you have a parallel path of bail reform. It just doesn't.
And I absolutely agree.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Ms. Simon.
Thank you so much, Public Defender Stanton. It was, I think, 2 years ago, maybe more, when you stood up and talked about the lack of access to attorneys being able to meet with their clients who are in the county jail. And I'm appalled that this still isn't resolved. And I don't understand, it confounds me that 2 years later, we're still having this conversation. I think it's been 2 years, and I don't understand what the problem exactly is. And I had asked the chair of the safety committee if we could have an actual session on that through his committee, and I think he would do that, to find out in the nitty gritty what exactly is it. Lack of space, lack of COs. I think that's what I kept hearing. The minimization of family access to attorney access is shutting down access to justice. What is it that is needed to correct this through this budget process?
Chairman Miller to Councilwoman Simon, I would indicate to you that it's multifaceted, but there's been issues over the years, but I've sat down with Mr. Mason, Brandy Carty, and indicated, at one time, for a number of years, attorneys, you could have 15 attorneys in a conference room. There was a rectangular table, and there was no interference. You couldn't hear what the other person was saying, and yet they could bring 15 people out at a time. We have 3 conference rooms. If you're a decent attorney, you're in court most of the morning, someplace in northeastern Ohio, not just in the Justice Center. So you have a few hours in the afternoon, but you don't, because they're so hopelessly understaffed. I know they're making great efforts to do that, but you can't just put 150 corrections officers in there and say everything's going to be fine. That takes a tremendous amount of training. They've lost a lot of officers. They're not knowledgeable. But to have 3 conference rooms at limited hours, the access is 8:30 to 11:30. You can't get in past 11, you know this. 1:30 to 4:30, no evening hours. Saturdays, 8:30 to 12. That's hit and miss completely, and no Sundays. You can't go in at night. Many attorneys would go in at night. You cannot be denied access to your attorney. You can't. This is a constitutional violation that occurs daily in this county. And there's a lot of reasons. The point is, it's never been mollified because obviously it's at its most acute the last 3 months because of the understaffing and the complete chaos that's going on over there.
public defender, is it space? I mean, can we get a new room, or I think we need to get the COs or whoever's there to be in there, but let's get another room.
Oh, no,
We used to have more rooms. I used to do this work. It wasn't
Correct.
it was not anything like what's going on now.
They transformed the one room on the 9th floor, which is the main floor for visitation. That's where they had a huge rectangular table. You could go in there and interview
Right.
your clients. You'd have a dozen to 15 attorneys at a time.
We need to fix this like now, and we're
Yes.
capable of fixing this
Immediately.
now.
But I would indicate to you, if you have the time, you really and truly should, and I'd be happy to give you the names of corrections officers who would give you some tremendous insight, as long as they're anonymous, who will tell you as of Friday, October 25th, things are not better. Okay, they're not. And they're saying that without rancor. They're just being very factual. It's going to take a long period of time.
Adding space is not going to take a long time. Okay, thank you. We're going to have a separate hearing, and this needs to be corrected immediately.
does.
I just don't understand this. It's been years.
Yes, it
We-
has.
We have Stevens followed by Conwell and Brown.
Can you email us a copy of the bail task force report?
Certainly.
That way I could be more articulate and
and-
more informed.
Please do not confuse that, Councilwoman Stevens. If you have the bail task reform report from the Ohio Supreme Court, disregard that. And I'm sorry, Chief Justice O'Connor, but that's an impotent document. The one that was prepared by Common Pleas Court under John Russo's tutelage is a robust, potent document, and it really embraces the essence of bail reform. So we'll send that to you.
Thank you.
Would you please send that to the clerk of council so that it can be distributed to all members of council?
Would that be Ms. Schmatzer?
Yes.
Can I put it on a poster board?
That would be one and the same. Okay, we have Ms. Conwell.
Through the chair to Public Defender Stanton, is the sheriff working with you in regards to this last point you were just talking of?
Through Mr. Kochevar, who was brought back by Mr. Mason, very wisely, I might add. We've had a number of meetings. He's very accessible. I can call him for anything at any time. But there's countless issues involved here. And he's doing the best that he can, and he doesn't circumvent questions. He addresses them directly. He just can't get to them in a manner that's going to expedite the process. But there's no more knowledgeable person in the county than Mr. Kochevar.
So number one, it's not, well, that's the warden, right? And Kochevar, the,
No, he's like the troubleshooter. He's the administrator, but
okay.
he knows more about every position in that jail than anyone.
So there is space. Did he tell you that there's adequate space to do this?
He did not tell me that, but I know that there is.
Okay. All right, and so currently, I just want to be clear, currently the access to justice are those hours that you stated for us? And what does the law state, that it's supposed to be open 24/7?
No, the law doesn't state that, but, obviously, under the Ohio Administrative Code, there has to be facilities available to counsel for efficiency of operation and consultation with clients. And that's not being afforded us.
Okay, I get that on the space, but on the timing, I'm trying to.
No, I would consider that as being providing facilities. They're not provided.
Okay.
If they're
So
not
what-
available to us, they're not provided. I will also indicate, no one works harder in this county than those corrections officers on our behalf, on the attorney's behalf. But they're overworked completely. And again, that space issue confronts them more acutely than it does the attorneys.
Okay, and so what about no Sunday?
I haven't
So
been there on a
should it-
Sunday in
should it
decades.
Should it be a Sunday, you were saying?
Certainly.
Okay, so you're saying it should at least be open at least 7 days a week?
Yes. And there should be evening hours. I'm not saying it has to be 24 hours. But,
Gotcha.
you're in the eve of trial or you're in trial. You need to consult with your client over the weekend if you're in the middle of a trial.
Ms. Brown.
Actually, Councilwoman Conwell reached my point. Is extended hours something that you're suggesting or requesting, and is that permissible? Is that? something prohibiting us from extending these hours that have been set?
Chairman Miller to Councilwoman Brown, I don't see why you'd be inhibited by doing that. I mean, the sheriff,
ORC, I don't know if it's a revised code, if it's a charter thing, if it's a county thing, so is it just a departmental thing?
I think
So-
it's departmental more than anything else, but of course, we can provide we can certainly provide an analysis and as far as access and the effective assistance of counsel. I mean, it's the Sixth Amendment, right?
No, I
That's
understand
really,
that.
it's a constitutional issue.
So with that said, we should be providing extended hours is what it sounds like.
Correct.
And I'm not sure that it should be required that we need to do an analysis because the hours that you just identified are clearly restrictive. So if there's something that is negating us from doing that, I would like to know why.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Ms. Conwell followed by Sean.
Through the chair to Mr. Stanton. So when I recently toured the jail, I saw video phones or whatever. I don't know what the law, they're installed, but they're not up to working capacity yet. So I guess the video phone, so for visitation or things of that nature. Is that a tool that you could actually use in conjunction with the attorneys?
We can do it if, in fact, we have the assurance that no one else is listening. Okay? And even in the consultation rooms right now, in one room out of the 3 that's available, it's backed right up to where 25 inmates are waiting to see their families. They can hear everything that you're saying.
Gotcha.
We obviously can't talk over the phones about anything significantly when we're on the phone talking through glass to someone. You can only give them procedural updates. You can't talk about the essence of the case.
So in using that tool that has been in place, and I don't want to lead you to believe that they put that in there for that, but I know it's for visitation. I was just wondering if we could use that resource.
Well, you know, I took a tour myself, which I didn't need to take that tour, and it was honestly not what I wanted to see, but that's neither here nor there. Those phones haven't been, nobody's used those, and I think, I would only speculate, but we've never used those phones for consultation with attorneys. But they have been used for court purposes.
Okay, so what I'm trying to gather from you, would that be something that you would agree upon? And I know you stated only if there was an assurance if nobody was listening.
Correct. I mean, we do that occasionally through state institutions. When somebody's in a state facility, we can do that, but we have the assurance that that's purely confidential.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Schwan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stan, what is Franklin and Hamilton County? I mean, that would be a real easy thing to grab their hours of operation and say, this is what's going on in Cincinnati, this is what's going on in Columbus. We can probably grab Toledo, Youngstown, and throw their jail system hours of operation, say, okay, this is a minimal amount that we should be providing Cuyahoga County, because that's at least a norm that these other counties are doing. How hard would that be for us to gather that data?
No, it's very easy. I mean, and just the surrounding counties here, you can call Medina, Lorraine. You can I know
Yeah,
they're not
they're
the
not
same
comparable size. Yeah, right.
But it's all relative. How many people do they have there? How many people are there? You know, there's a heck of a lot of criminal cases in Medina County, especially in Lorain County. But they have greater access. I've seen my clients late at night in Medina and Lorain when I actually had a private practice.
I'm sure those are all published hours and for every one of those major counties. So how hard would it be?
I'm sure it's on their websites.
Yeah, I'm sure it is too. So it'd be very easy just to identify and say, okay, this is the minimal that this county should be providing if it's comparable to the other counties. And in which case, then we should find a way to do that out there.
Thank you.
Excellent suggestion. Councilman Gallagher.
Mr. Stanton, having heard this, we have a safety committee meeting tomorrow. We can bring this up under miscellaneous business. If you would, that's 1 o'clock. We'll have Mrs. Carney here, and we'll have Mr. Mason here if he's available, and we can get to the bottom of this. Last I heard was the phone problem when Sheriff Pinckney was first sheriff. And now we're hearing this, and this isn't a good way in which to hear things. So let's get to the bottom of it tomorrow and find a solution.
Chairman Miller, to Councilman Geller, I will indicate again, though, that Mr. Mason and Ms. Carney have met with me a number of times, and they've kept me updated on trying to give us insight as to what's moving along there and trying to increase visitation. So they're of a mindset to do that.
Well,
But we need to expedite it, obviously.
and we're the expediters.
Okay, very
Thank
good.
you.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, it would be very easy for the media to make that same request to identify what those hours of operations are. Franklin, Hamilton County, publicize that. And it would be very easy, and I'm sure that Ms. Carney is listening to this presentation right this very moment, and it would be very easy for her to Google that information and get all of that in not all 88 counties, but maybe 10, and see where we are.
And if someone is not inclined to do that, I have two people. We have plenty of people in our office that would be happy to engage in that task.
My guess is that young lady over there from Cleveland.com has the ability to pull that stuff too.
Very good.
Okay, Ms. Simon.
Just to follow up, thank you so much, and I look forward to committee, but we can say to do this, which we have for so long, and even if we get legislation to do this, we need to understand the budgeting piece of this and make sure that we have the capacity to make this happen. If we have to look at a new budget, we'll look at that. I mean, that's what we need to get into, is the detail of what it's going to take. And I don't think we're restricted to Ohio to look at hours. I mean, we can look at a comparable county out of the state. It doesn't have to be Ohio to look at the population. And Chicago is a pretty progressive system of how they handle the justice issues. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This is the budget hearing, so that's certainly on target, that we need to know if we need financial resources to do this. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Under miscellaneous business, I just want to remind you that we have another hearing tomorrow morning from 9 to noon. It is the last of the departmental hearings, so when we're done with that, we will be into figuring out what's what. There being nothing further that holds our attention, we stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for staying with us.